Remember that iconic photo of Bishop Kikanis when the people are reaching through the fence at the border at Mass? They're reaching through like they need this for life. So Thomas says the Eucharist is best understood as alimentum spirituale. It's spiritual food. And he says this, just as baptism is generatio, it's the generation of spiritual life, as confirmation is augmentum, that means growth in the spiritual life, so the Eucharist is alimentum, food for the journey. Necessary? Last time I checked, food is necessary for physical life. So this food, necessary for the life of the soul. I had the experience many years ago with a friend. I did a bike trip from Paris to Rome. I was younger in those days. And we would do like 70 or 80 miles a day. And on that trip, I had my first experience of what they call hitting the wall. I'd read about it, but never experienced it. That's when you're going, and then it's not like you're just getting tired. It's like you can't go on. You're so depleted that you can't move. And that happened to me somewhere in the south of France, and I just had to stop until we always had these big French baguettes in the back of the bike there. And I ate one of those and drank water and then was able to go on. And that's always stayed vividly in my mind. Alimentum, food for the body, necessary. So, alimentum spirituale, necessary. Padre, per favore, for the life of the soul. His next observation, I think also good for catechists and for teachers as you present the Eucharist. He says, the Eucharist has 3 names, depending upon its relationship to the dimensions of time. If we look back in time, the Eucharist is called sacrificium, sacrifice, because it embodies the sacrifice of the cross. You look around the present time, Eucharist is called communio, because right now it's a communion with Christ and with each other, members of the mystical body of Christ. If we look to the future, the Eucharist is called viaticum, because it's food that will take us on our final journey into heaven. And then the great name, he says, is indeed Eucharistia, thanksgiving. Why? Because that's the whole life of heaven. When we are totally Christified in heaven, all we will do is give thanks and praise. So sacrifice, communion, viaticum, Eucharist, these great names. Beautiful stuff. I love this. Is it conveniens, Thomas asks. It's a favorite word of his, by the way. It just means fitting. Is it fitting that Jesus established the Eucharist? His answer, of course, is yes. Just as the emperor, he says, leaves behind his imago in statues and on coins to remind the people of his presence even when he's absent. So Jesus, now in heaven, in a way absent from us, leaves behind his great imago, his great image, this great sign of his presence. I love this, too. And I try to think of it, actually, whenever I say Mass. Thomas says, what someone says and does in the ultimate moments of his or her life is of tremendous power and significance. Let's say you're gathering with someone and they know they're going to be executed the next day, and you're gathering with this beloved friend who's facing death. Wouldn't you find written in your heart whatever that friend did and said that night? So, Aquinas says, we attend to everything Jesus said and did, but with a very special, intense attention.